I'm in need of a great big grin. I know where to go for some oxytocin when the whole world seems to be cold and mean. I know who to call for some dopamine. I'll be your Lucy, you'll be my Ethel, I'll be the Thelma, you'll be Louise, and we'll ride together till we reach the rainbow's end. Thank you for being my friend.
Welcome, friends. It's Joey and Kelly and Anatomy of Friendship. And hi, Joe.
Hi, Kel.
So we're going to talk today about the H in the friendship formula. H is for hold yourself. And I know some people are maybe giggling because it might sound a little phallic, but it's not. Well, it could be. Oh my God. I'm in a little mood today. Okay, Joe.
Ways to hold yourself.
All right, let's get all that out of our system. And I think I want to start with this one. I saw a therapist that you and I have both seen, Georgina. Is that her name? Georgina Smith.
Georgina Smith in Santa Monica.
In Santa Monica. And I was in a session with Dana years ago during a moment where I was particularly perturbed. And this was before the undisturbability. If you listen to the last episode, you'll know what we mean by the undisturbability challenge. So this was pre-undisturbability. And I don't remember what we were arguing about, but I just was furious. And Dana and I have this dynamic where I can just, like, he gets really calm and really cool, and I could get equally and opposite, wildly, like, off the chain, at least in the past. Things have changed. Thank you, God. And while we were in the session, Georgina paused me in mid-rant and said, Kelly, you've got to keep a hold of yourself. And if you can see me, I'm looking like I'm making a hug, like I'm hugging an invisible person in front of me, and there was something about that at first that really annoyed me because I didn't want to be interrupted. I was on a roll and I felt entitled to what I was saying. I felt entitled to my anger. I felt like I could convince a judge and jury of the Supreme Court of how right I was. I had no idea that I wasn't holding myself. I would have never thought, if somebody said, are you holding yourself? And I'd be like, of course, I'm fine. But there was something in her reflection of me that really imprinted. And I shared this with Joey, and she and I have talked about this whole, in many ways, I think every one of the letters of the friendship formula contain the entire formula, and this is no exception. In this one, I almost feel like it may be the most important one. I say this about them all because I think if we can do this, then I think we can have friendships that go on and on and on and on. But without this little distinction, this ability to hold ourselves, we might just slash and burn through the best relationships and feel very victim-y about it. All I can say is that it has something to do with undisturbability. It has something to do with me creating safety, being able to have my feelings, but not putting them on somebody. And like I said in a previous episode, it's kind of like having this crying infant that's got a poopy diaper, and I'm putting this baby on someone else's lap saying, it's your fault, you fix it. And that ain't maturity. and it doesn't work. It's mine to hold. It doesn't mean mine to suppress, but it means it's mine to take responsibility for. And then I can communicate like a mature adult what my needs and wants and desires are from there. Okay, Joe. What up? What up, Joe?
Oh my God.
What is this
so
percolating
good.
for you?
So good. No, I'm so happy you told this story. This is so important. And it's the origin of the holding distinction between us. But I had like 3 words in my head that were coming up as you were talking. One is hold yourself. Sounds very much like what we hear in the world. Get a hold of yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Now that feels like it has a negative connotation. Get a hold of yourself.
Right.
Hold yourself feels like it's just a slightly different flavor from the old feeling of get a hold of yourself, like all of you crazy women who are all acting out. Get a hold of yourself.
Hysterical women.
Yeah. So hold yourself feels like a softer, kinder thing to say and to do. And also the other thing that came up was in wedding vows, you often hear to have and to hold.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
Have and to hold. And so that came up and I thought, how many times we don't hold ourselves, we don't have ourselves, and we don't hold ourselves. Like you said, we put ourselves like a baby with poopy diapers on someone else so they can have it and they can hold it. And it's like, how are they going to be any better at that than we are? And how are we going to be any better at handling our own personal needs? How are they going to be better than we are?
Right.
Do we even know what they are? And then also I was thinking that, when Georgina said that to you, we didn't have the distinction at the time that we weren't supposed to hold that.
Right.
We wasn't supposed to. Well, it's not true that we didn't completely. Okay. We didn't have the word hold. We had the idea, don't go above a 3, don't act out.
I don't know if we had it back then.
Maybe not. Okay.
No, I don't think we had it back then. We've come a long way, baby, in a few years. Darn it, man.
Yeah. Man, okay, we've done a lot of damage.
A lot of damage, but at least we've turned those hurls into pearls.
Pearls. That's right. Those crises into...
Those tragics into magics.
Tragics into magic. Oh, you know what? I always mistake crises. Why do I do that?
I don't know. Because...
No, a crisis is a terrible thing to
waste.
Oh, okay.
Right. We haven't wasted our crises. We haven't wasted them.
We haven't wasted one of them. No, we didn't let them go to waste. We let them. Yeah. Let them inspire our humbleness and to be and to make, like 12-step program says, make an amends by living that amends. So making amends by continuing in the future to course correct. So anyway,
I want to bookmark that for you later to say more about that living amends, because you got more to say about that. Anyway, keep going.
I do. Anyway, I was just thinking we probably need to expand a little bit more on this, because now it's second nature to us that we know what it is. But back then, not that long ago, we didn't. And so I feel like it's important that we get a little bit more into the details about daily life, about getting upset at your friends, upset at your partners, upset at someone in the grocery store, upset at the person on the road, and how quickly we can get this like surge of animalistic anger, defense, upset, and we let it spurt out of us. And so this is what we're talking about, is like, don't let that stuff spurt out. There's an itch you want to scratch, but scratching it by immediately having the reaction from it popping out may not be the most mature or the most helpful thing. Does it help to feel better a little bit in the moment? Yes, it does. It feels kind of good. It feels kind of good to rage on someone and get it out. They hurt me, and I'm going to let you know how it hurt me. Or, a friend wants to just tell you how it is. Like, you need to listen to me, and I'm telling you because I love you. I'm telling you the truth. And, like that kind of stuff. I don't know. I just feel like what we've come to is We work out our crap with the friends, the therapists, the clergy, the coaches, the counselors, the downloads,
the journal,
tools, the journal, exactly, the journal, the dream manifesting, the dream crafting. We work out our animal parts with tools that can calm us so that we can be dignified, kind, loving, responsible, safe friends and partners and family members. And so I feel like sometimes this like spurt of energy, spurt of upset, and spurt of expression is almost like I have a feeling and I need to get it handled now. Like
right.
I have a pain, so I'm going to pop a pill. I have an upset, so I'm going to drink alcohol. I feel empty, so I'm going to go buy something right this second. And I'm saying it with that attitude because I kind of feel like that's what the itchy sound, the itchy is bitchy. The itchy sound. Sounds like
good.
that. And it's like, good. And then I just want to veer this off to, what we've talked about in other episodes, which is that many of us are little mice inside. We have these great exteriors, and all of us, some of our exteriors are scared. Some of us, our exteriors are offensive. Some of our exteriors are, kind. Some of them are nice. Some of them are giving. We have all these different masks that we wear to cover up that we're all tender. We're tender human beings. And if you've been on the receiving end of someone blasting you, and we both have, then we don't want to give someone that same pain. We want to give them the dignity that we wish they gave us. If you hurt my feelings, I actually feel like the person who hurt your feelings needs to be dealt with gentleness, because most of us don't mean to hurt another person's feelings. And so when we point out the way, and this is something you and I do, when we point out the way the other person hurt our feelings, we are so loving and so kind and so careful about it, because we care so much about this relationship and our friendship continuing, that when our feelings are hurt, we want the other person who hurt our feelings to feel safe that they hurt our feelings. I want you to feel safe that you hurt my feelings. I don't want you to feel afraid that you hurt my feelings, that I'm going to say something that hurt your feelings back to make you contract and withdraw from me. I care about being connected to you so much that I will think about it and, I was going to say drink about it, but no.
I will get drunk about it. I will shoot up about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like
I will shop about it.
Which brings me back to, I will hold myself. I will hold myself, and I will go in and I will mine where my pain came from. I'll try to take deep responsibility for what button I had, what trigger was there, that I could get disturbed by anything that you did, so that I come to you with my previous historical pain that gave me my trigger, so I can be responsible for that. Whatever you said touched it, but I held myself first. And because I held myself first, I'm not handing you my crap to handle. I know it's my crap to begin with. But then, because we have these amazing rules, you always come around and go, oh my God, I was a little unconscious. I was a little bull in a china shop-ish. I was a little too busy trying to manifest something or externalize something. And I kind of just went right over that. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that. I'm like, of course, I forgave you before you even said anything, because I know your heart, because I know your innocence. So in this H, like you said, it kind of encapsulates all of the letters, and all of the letters are in the H. So I'm going to pass to you now as they break apart my roof above.
I can't hear it, honey.
I'm so glad. Half my roof just fell off the side of the building. So I'm glad you didn't hear that.
Hey, it's a metaphor for what's happening here. We're reconstructing the roof, the consciousness of what is friendship. Where the roof is being constructed, so we can have new thoughts and open ourselves up. I want to be, and while we're opening up the roof, I'm going to get airy fairy-ish for a second, and just share that I posted a little blog last night, about how, I don't know if it's because of the full moon or because I just saw the Barbie movie, but I had a raging dream. I had one dream where I was sobbing so full on. I was so brokenhearted. And then the next night was just the Tasmanian devil without restraint. Like it was Vajrayogini, Kali, Tasmanian devil, all of that, like with no restraint. And it felt good. It felt powerful.
You don't have to hold yourself in your dreams.
Yeah. And I felt like, oh my God, this is one of those moments where I'm in awe of dreams. And I have these moments regularly and they surprise me, where I think, thank God I had a proper place for it. And I didn't consciously vent this stuff in my dreams. And I didn't even know I was particularly angry. I was a little annoyed at something earlier in the day, but it wasn't like full rage. But how wonderful that dreams gave me a chance to not hold myself per se. Like, of course, it was within the realm of my own consciousness. So yeah, I was holding myself because I didn't put it on anybody, but it felt good to get it out. So I think, and I'm going all over the place, but I did an interview with Christy Whitman yesterday, and Christy was sharing with me, and I told her to repeat the story that she shared once about, she went through hell and back with her son when he was a baby. He had to have multiple heart operations as an infant, and it was so hard. And she is the law of attraction coach. Like she is. And so she was doing great, holding space. And then turns out they had to have yet another operation. And she was like, okay, excuse me. She leaves and goes out to her car and screamed every obscenity, every cuss word, everything to God. How dare you have been doing all this right? And then sobbing. And then she noticed, for some reason, she noticed the time, and it was 90 seconds of hurlage, full, unbridled rage. And she said she felt better. Like she wasn't okay because the circumstance was still so scary, right. But she was able to then go back upstairs and have a mature conversation with the surgeons and with the doctors. But so that to me was like a perfect example of so many things. It was her holding herself. She didn't spew all over. Imagine had she spewed all over the surgeons and the doctors who were about to operate on her son. Like,
ooh, that's
like they might have still done a great job, but oh my God, like these are the people that like you don't want to spew on them. And yet she was entitled to her feelings, but they were her feelings and she put them in. I mean, I think our cars are also mini rage rooms because we can roll up the window, we can turn up the music, and we can go somewhere, especially at night if it's dark, nobody sees us, we can hit the seats, we get it out of our system, and then okay, we're okay. It's like taking care of ourselves, because that energy, we don't want to suppress it. I hope nobody hears anywhere in this whole formula that this is about suppression. I've had a few people intimate that that's what we're talking about. Like, hell no, absolutely not, because we know what you suppress must express, and we don't want it to express in some offhanded going postal kind of a way. And depression is often a function of holding down what we're feeling. So no, we don't want any of that. We want it to come out, but in the most constructive, most healthy way possible.
Oh boy, that was such an important disclaimer that you just gave. And we've said it before. This isn't about suppression. I mean, to me, I think my go-to place for expressing all that stuff is to download to you. I go to my voice memo app. I go in.
Me too.
Camera, I push play. I push record, and like I'm not pretty sometimes when I'm upset and I'm like cussing and I'm, all that stuff, but I don't do it to you if you're the one that activated me.
Correct.
I do it to you when another friend activates me or if my partner activates me. That's when I do it. And I just want to add another story about hold yourself, something a little bit simpler, like a day-to-day, how do we do this with friends? Hold yourself. And I didn't perfectly hold myself. I talked about that I wasn't holding myself. Okay, so here it is. So you know me as a really good hostess. And someone that cooks and has a motherly kind of an energy.
You're a 2 in the Enneagram.
I'm a 2 in the Enneagram, and I'm a recovering codependent. So I still tend to the side of really wanting to serve people, make sure they have everything they want and need. And I've had a lot of car accidents and a lot of issues, and my son is very ill, and my body's been hurting and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so our friend, Suzanne Rock, who we've talked about numerous times, she came up to visit me in Oregon with her 2 kids. And we had 24 hours together from 3 in the afternoon to 3 in the afternoon. So
wow, that was
together.
it?
That was it. 24 hours. It was amazing. It was an amazing 24 hours.
Okay.
I mean, the first day we swam in the river, the second day I kayaked with Tristan, her son.
Wow.
So anyway, I'm, as you know, mostly vegan, and I eat some fish. And I got a big bag of red Argentinian wild shrimp, and I got some veggies, and I was like, okay, so when they come, I'll at least have an easy dinner, because I haven't had a lot of energy to cook lately. It's been hard for me to cook. I've been distracted and, helping my son a lot, and I've just been super, super tired. And I forgot that Suzanne was allergic to shrimp and was in the hospital last month because a teenager shellfish. She's so shellfish. And so, and they're meat eaters, and I'm not. And so I didn't have a lot of stuff in the house. And I was like, oh my God, you guys, I forgot your mom, the shrimp, and blah, blah, blah. Do you want some gyozas? Do you want some samosas? Do you want some macaroni and cheese? I have some watermelon. They're like, no. And then, so we went for a walk, and we got some vegan, we went to Whole Foods. There's this vegan burger place. So we got vegan burgers, and I'm like, oh, Beyond Burgers, they taste, very much like regular meat. But the boys didn't order any of the burgers. They only ordered French fries. And so I just felt like that was not the right place to go. That's not the right place to go. And then the next day, we had to go up and walk to the store to get, pancakes and sausages for the boys. And I just felt like, me, I want to have the food done and ready, a pot of stew, something, the stuff is planned, the fruit is cut. The watermelon was never cut. I never cut the watermelon. So I two text messages. Three. I think I apologized to Suze 2 or 3 times. I'm so sorry. She's like, don't worry about it. Excuse me. But after she left, I still found myself texting her an apology. And then I was texting another apology. And I said, you know what? I realize that I'm externalizing my need for your reassurance when I need to hold myself and reassure myself. If I continue to believe that that's what I'm supposed to be, if you reflected to me anger that I was supposed to be that, I would feel defensive. I'm choking on this way of being. Ooh. This way of being, of feeling like I am supposed to be so much for people in order to earn my safety, my keep, to be valuable and indispensable. And these were really survival mechanisms for me and survival strategies. I became the person who you wanted to have around. Because I could bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan and do it with a smile. And I am getting more tired, and my physical body has more limitations. And the service that I do to just, my partner and my son, if those were the only 2 people I was in service to, it's a lot. So to keep apologizing to someone for not living up to an expectation I set for myself, while I'm trying to dismantle it, while I'm trying to become less codependent, while I'm in recovery for that, it's not appropriate to apologize for not having a buffet waiting. It's not appropriate to do that. And if you, as my friend, expected me to have a buffet waiting, not a buffet, but a buffet, I think I might be a little bit irritated by that. So for me to be apologizing is me saying, I can expect this of myself, but you can't expect it of me. Not only that, but I need you to reassure me that it's okay that you, that I, didn't live up to some expectation that I set for myself. It just doesn't feel right. And as I was texting her this morning saying, I realize I'm trying to externalize my reassurance with you because I'm having a hard time holding myself. I'm having a hard time reassuring myself that the things that I thought I should be, I don't have to be, that you don't need me to be so much, that it's okay that we walk to the store together and get ingredients, and that we walk back and cook together, and that I'm not somehow magically responsible for everything because I once gave myself that job. So I'm still a work in progress in the holding myself area, but I wanted to say this because I felt like it was such a daily, like this is a daily friend thing, like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for not being more. It's like, I just want there to be more room for our humanity, but I have to hold my own humanity first. And, it's friendships like this that have helped reflect so much room for me that sometimes I needed you to model it before I could do it for myself. With Suzanne, we're getting closer to each other, and I haven't had her stay at my house before this way. And so I'm sort of testing out the edges of our relationship and making sure that the safety that I think is there really is there. So there's some part of me that is externalizing my desire for reassurance. I'm aware of it, but then I let her know I'm going to hold myself no matter what. And she's like, of course, she texted me back. She goes, I had no expectations. We had the best time. Blah. Right.
Period.
Right. But what if that wasn't her response? What if she's like, yeah, I was totally disappointed. Like, I was super sick. I drove 2 days to get to see you. My sons and I showed up. We were really hungry. You said you wanted to take care of me and you didn't have anything. Like, what if that was her response? I would have moved her out on the rings of Saturn.
Yeah.
So how am I holding myself to that? And going to be defensive if anyone else held me to that? No, I have to hold myself here. I need to not have these extreme apologies for things. I have to go, no. I don't expect this of myself. And also, by the way, precedence. I have set precedence for my way of being. So I also think it's responsible for me to let people know, like, I know usually I am so good with the food thing, but I'm not. And by the way, I think I did that too.
I'm sure
I think I let her know, like, I'm just coming back from my son's 2 days putting his house back together after he was ripped off by a friend. Thank you. I think we're up to $3,500 of stuff that was stolen now. And I'm exhausted. And I come home and, I'm so lucky to have her over. But I let her know I'm totally exhausted. I just did this. She knows what I'm going through with my kid. But I need to not expect it of myself. So I'm going to use the expectation and entitlement on myself and put it in this distinction called hold yourself. All right, I pass.
Oh my God, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I just dropped my lid. I lost my lid.
What does that mean? Your lid's coming off.
Exactly.
Rage in your dreams.
Exactly. I'm blowing my lid.
Hello, friend. So this is the space in our show where we would normally do a commercial, but since we're a new show, we don't have sponsorship yet. We're going to do it a little differently. But if you have a product or service that you think our friends would be interested in, then reach out to us ASAP at info@anatomyoffriendship.com. And in the meantime, Joey and I have a couple things up our sleeves. So, Joe, what's up yours? What's up yours? What's in your sleeves rattling around?
Well, as a holistic health counselor, I have a few slots available left on my book. And I'm really excited right now about the communication strategies I've been studying regarding neurodivergence and speaking to people who are struggling. And that's a massive thing going on in our world right now. Cal?
You are so good at that. Oh my goodness. So what I've got going on is you can go to my website, kellysullivanwalden.com. And if that's too hard to spell, go to ihadthestrangestdream.com. And there's a place where you can book a private session with me if you've got dream questions. Also, I've got my books and oracle cards on there. Speaking of oracle cards, the latest one that just came out is Wild Dreams Animal Oracle. This is from Blue Angel Publishing, and this has 44 animals. So it's kind of about like, what if you dream about animals, what are they trying to tell you? Mostly, spoiler alert, they're trying to tell you to just let loose and become more of your wild, fully expressed, passionate self.
It might just be that it's just my favorite way is to get my needs met from other people. Like, I think if, my younger, like more teenager self was in charge of the universe, she would cast a spell and have everybody be like you, like be and like the goddesses, and like, there would just be consideration and kindness and reassurance and understanding and intuition and compassion. Like that's how the world would be. And in that world, I might be able to be a little loosey goosey and not have to meet my own needs so well, because the world around me would be kind and reflective and all of that. So I think it's, yeah, just like we've talked about how when it comes to our partners, like it's just so easy. I can't remember where I heard it from, but they said that our relationship with God is often reflected by our relationship with our partner. Like if we believe that in a divine, loving God, then we tend to have a more loving relationship. So if we're having a difficulty in our primary relationship, then we tend to project it back on God. Like God doesn't really love me. God's not really here. I don't know. I'm kind of going a little bit wild here, but it's kind of like there's a Jungian myth called beware the curse of the too good mother. And the notion of that myth is if someone external to us meets our needs so perfectly, then we are cursed because we never have to grow the muscles to meet those needs ourselves. So it is a blessing when our mother, when our significant other, when our friends let us down, because how else will we ever build these muscles that are so important so that we, at the end of the day, feel like the world doesn't have to be perfect, because we, in our own imperfect way, we hold ourselves. We're taking care of ourselves, and we're the only ones that matter. It's like Julia Cameron said something like, all the accolades, all the love in the world is fool's gold compared to the true gold of our own self-love and our own self-care. That's what we crave. So literally, everyone can say, I love you, you're perfect, you're great. And if we don't feel it ourselves, then it falls away. Then it doesn't really count all that praise. So I think this notion of holding ourselves, I'm glad, Joe, that you kind of broadened the horizons, that it's not just about the rage, it's about the reassurance. I remember once like looking for love in all the wrong places. It was a new-ish friend, and I can't even remember what it was, but I was like, oh my God, are you okay? Is it okay? And she was like, no, it's really not. And I was like, like a quivering fish out of water. Like, I've made myself so vulnerable, put myself in her hands, and she dropped me. And I can still feel the pain of that. And she didn't, like, shame on me for putting myself in her hands. I mean, it was as if to say, I think you've got the markings of somebody that could be safe and that could be a long-term friend. I'm going to test you here. And when she dropped me, I was like, all right, you failed that test. But what a setup. What a setup. So I want to go into this other little thing. I feel like there's something here when we have a need that doesn't get met, and there is some kind of a flood of of emotion or chemicals that go through our brain in response. And that it could be that I was needing reassurance, didn't get it. And the flood of chemicals that comes through is kind of this like fight and flight protective pain. And that might trigger anger, or it might trigger deep sadness or victimhood, or whatever that is. That flood of chemicals, I feel like it's that very flood of chemicals that sort of creates the schism between the Dr. Jekyll and the Mr. Hyde aspect of self. Because I can be such a lovely person, I know, like kind, compassionate, but you should have seen me in my dream last night where I was letting it rip. And you should see me in my waking life in the past when I have let it rip. It's scary. It's ugly. And I know you've said the same thing yourself. And then the chemicals wash through and it's kind of like, oh, what was that about? Okay, what's for dinner? I love you. Let's continue. And it's like we resume being kind of back in our healthy, non-traumatized self, and we're a different person. I think when we are in the flooded version of ourselves, it feels appropriate to act out, to say, please, please, please reassure me, or God darn you, you hurt me. I mean, it just feels like it is correct. It feels in response to what the feeling is. So it feels anti or counterintuitive, counterinstinctual to not hold self, to put the self on other people. I mean, to be able to hold the self, it feels counterintuitive. It feels like it's the last thing to do. But so I think we just have to, in our very conscious mind, like if we're going to bridge the gap between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, if we're going to bridge the gap between these selves so that we can be people that others can feel safe around, and that we can be dignified and have radical self-responsibility and do all the things that are in the friendship formula. We have to just notice the sounds that come out of our mouths, notice the way that we be as red flags that tell us, oh, this is how we be in those moments. We breathe, we count to 10, we take a walk. To me, I immediately picture duct tape over my mouth. Like in 12 steps, they say restraint of pen and tongue, even though we hardly use pens anymore. But it's like this doesn't, unless there is a genuine emergency. Sometimes there is a genuine emergency. Sometimes it is absolutely appropriate to let it rip. But I think those moments are few and far between. Okay. Back to you.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. So you said some things that made me speculate on. I'm glad you blew your lid. I'm glad the lid is off.
My lid.
Great.
Oh, there it is.
It's on the ground.
I found my lid.
Okay. So some of the things that you said, it reminds me of our last episode about safety and having safety in friendships. And
yes, yeah,
kind of went into this whole area of like, bringing your own safety with you, like safety first, make yourself safe first before entering a situation. And this is like, hold yourself first before expecting somebody else to hold you. And then also I was thinking, when you were talking about what Julia Cameron said about all the accolades and love in the world, are nothing compared to, how did you say it?
She said it's fool's gold compared to the true gold that is our own self-validation, our own self-love, our own holding.
Well, so what that brought up for me was my John of God experience.
Yeah. This is a good place for that.
Maybe I can do a little bit here. So I had problems with rage, and I came from a family where rage was one of the ways that, anger was expressed. So I thought anger and rage were the same Like, I thought they were synonymous. When you're angry, then you rage. And I realized later, anger is a feeling and rage is one way in which anger can be expressed.
Yeah.
And it was a harmful way, and I didn't know it. And, you know, as we are all growing and standing on the shoulders of our parents, we're refining and defining and trying to become more civilized humans. And so that's what I got, and that's what I copied. And I did damage with that kind of behavior. And, you know, I find rage in friendships and relationships to be violence. And it's like, it's not a lot different than punching someone.
Right.
And it's like, if someone can punch you once, that means they can punch you again. So even if you rage one time, but then you don't rage again for a long time, and you think, well, I haven't raged for a really long time, so why aren't you trusting me? It's because you show that violent streak. And anyway, so long story short, this isn't a friendship story about holding, but this is a relationship story about holding. But I think, you know, hopefully if you're in a relationship, your partner is also your friend, and you want to treat your friends this way. So I had raged one too many times over the many, 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 many years that I was in partnership. And I tried to get help from all these different, you know, places, from Al-Anon to therapy to books to healers to downloading to my best friend to, you know, and one day some friends of ours were going to see John of God in Brazil, who has since been put in jail for inappropriate activity. However, he, for many years, was sort of a vessel of these spirits that came through him and helped to heal all these people. And I, you know, my friends were going to go see him, and they said to me, do you want to send a letter to John of God and ask for help? I'm like, whatever, like, I will ask a potato for help at this point. I can't seem to get, you know, it has a lot of eyes, it can see, right? So, so I sent off this letter, and make a long story short, my friends went. And I was in an argument. So they were in Brazil, and I happened to be at home on the phone with my partner, and I wanted to talk to her about an issue that was bothering me. And she kept repeating this one line over and over again that disturbed me incredibly. And she said, I'm not going to talk to you about things anymore until you get some help. I'm not going to talk to you anymore until you get some help. And I'm like, don't you know that you're participating in making me crazy? I want to have a simple discussion with you about this, and you won't talk to me. And so whatever, yes, there was a dynamic. No, it's not, you know, I didn't, you know, rage in a vacuum, but I'm completely and totally responsible for myself. So having said that, I'm sitting at the table, and I had just said to my partner, I think our next conversation should be about us breaking up, dissolving this relationship, because I don't think I can do better or be better than I am. I'm working really hard, and I don't think that this environment, I don't think I can do better in this environment. I don't think this is going to work. And at that very moment, like in a bubble coming out of my mouth, is all this is in a text message. My friend, you know, had texted me from Brazil saying, John of God is looking at your face right now, because not only did I write a letter, but I sent a picture. John of God is looking at your picture right now, and he's smiling. So I said to my partner, I'm going to get off the phone with you right now, because John of God is looking at me, and I want to see if he's going to look into me, I want to look into me, and I want healing. And so I got off the phone, I closed my eyes, and I screamed out, God, show me what I haven't been able to see. And within an instant, I saw this flash, which I don't know if some of you know this, but in biologically speaking, I've heard it said, and I don't have a citation for this, but I heard it said that our brains, our minds can think 30 thoughts per second. So what happened for me in a flash is going to take me a minute to say. I saw this rageaholic inside of me had a name at the time, and my partner and I, not so lovingly, called her the tweaker, because she would tweak, and my body would look different. My sound of my voice would be different. My energy was different. It was my Mr. Hyde. And so in my mind's eye, in just a flash, I saw my tweaker standing in front of me, and she looked kind of like a 12-year-old me, kind of messy jeans, boots, dirty white t-shirt, long braids, sword in her scabbard. And she said to me, "You're so afraid if people knew I existed," as in my inner tweaker that was, rageful and horrible. She said, "You're so afraid if people knew I existed, they wouldn't love you. You're so afraid if people knew I existed, they would leave you. You're so afraid if people knew I existed, they would reject you and you would be alone and, die unhappy," something like that. And then she said, "But you don't love me. You leave me. You judge me. You are the one that abandons me, and you're the one that leaves me alone. And therefore you will never be happy. If all the people in the world loved you, you would still not be happy until you love me." And with it was a bolt of lightning. It was so astonishing to me because I got it. And a lot of people did love me. And I still didn't feel loved. It was going into a bucket with a hole in it, right in, right out, which, smacks of borderline personality disorder, has that kind of flavor to it. And I tended toward that flavor. So I got it. I had stuck I was only allowed to be, and you can plug Barbie movie. I was only allowed to be the happy Barbie. And I wasn't allowed to be anything unsavory. And so I shoved all the unsavory parts of me into this closet or into this trunk. And then, when I couldn't hold it in anymore and someone poked me enough and I had reached my limit, there was some part of me that felt entitled to let the whole entire kit and caboodle out on someone. And it was inappropriate for the situation. Talking about kitty litter did not deserve a monster. Talking about dishes. Caboodle. The kitty litter caboodle. Talking about dishes or vacuuming does not warrant a monster. It doesn't warrant that. Now, we all know that circumstances aren't the circumstances. It's for a lot of us, it's a load up of trauma and repetitive whatever needs unmet or whatever that is, which is another conversation for how do you meet your needs when a friend isn't meeting your needs or a partner isn't meeting your needs? How do you meet your needs? What do you do with your anger when they're not meeting your needs? Okay, spoiler alert, hold yourself, handle it with your adult. Okay, so that's that conversation. Yeah. In any case.
In as close to real time as possible so it doesn't build up. Keep going.
Exactly. Thank you. So, the end of the story basically is there's no end. It's me going in and trying to find a way to love and hold all parts of myself. And since then I've, and we've talked about subpersonalities forever, and subpersonalities are a big part of your work and how you interpret dreams and looking at it from the Jungian point of view. And anyway, so I'm always trying to learn to love these parts of myself that are not good enough, that are angry, that make mistakes, that can be ugly, that can be selfish, that can be unkind, that can be, I don't need any more adjectives. That can be all those things that if I can't find compassion and love for, then how do I expect other people to show me compassion and love? Why should you give me compassion and love for the things that I am not loving myself? There's not enough of it. There is not enough of it. If Suzanne hadn't reflected reassurance to me, I would have been defensive and upset that she expected so much of me, but I'm the one that expects so much of me. So I have to love and care for and hold all these parts of me in order to be capable of loving myself and therefore then capable of receiving love. We all think we want to be loved, but if we're not loving ourselves, it doesn't matter how much someone's loving us. It won't go in. It won't be enough. So I think, we weren't even sure what we were going to say about this letter today, but it feels like the most...
got so much to say.
Yeah. Okay. And I feel like I said so much. I just want to throw it back at you and have you reflect, what's coming up for you with this topic now.
Well, I think this is absolutely at the heart of what you are writing your book about, falling in love with your shadows, which will be, I predict, a massive New York Times best-selling book. Because I think the common therapeutic style of how to treat our shadows is to neutralize them and at best create some form of tolerating. But I I dare say, in observing you and being in this soup with you. It's going way beyond tolerating. It's about celebrating them so much so. And it's kind of like I heard about this thing that they do in somewhere in Africa. I don't remember. Reverend Michael Beckwith talked about this at church one day. I think it's in Ghana. He said that when some member of the tribe misbehaves, does something aberrant, the whole tribe gathers around like in an intervention kind of a thing, and they put that person in the center of the circle, and one at a time each person goes around the circle and they share with that person what they love most about them. And in the end, it makes me want to cry. So the person in the middle of the circle that did this awful thing is a puddle of tears. They feel loved and they feel seen, and that it tends to melt away their aberrant behavior that came from a place of deficit, a place of not loving themselves. It's almost like this group of people love them so hard that it had to trickle into themselves, which is just an amazing technique. Now, I know it's ideal, but I mean, it's like in my world, that's what would replace our jails and the jail system that we have here, because what we have is the system of punishment that just perpetuates the pain that causes the crime, that causes the behavior that creates the crime. It just keeps perpetuating itself. But to love that. So I feel like that's basically what you do in your book. It's this beautiful system of how to fall in love with what seems like the unlovable. We get to see what is so lovable about these protective mechanisms, basically, that have played a role in keeping us alive. They're unsung heroes that deserve a medal. At the very least, a hug, and this is what you do. So I feel like this is part of how we hold ourselves, is that we, before the trigger even starts, we practice taking some kind of inventory of these selves that tend to have such an edge and that tend to do the acting out. And maybe part of what we do is also, as hard as it may sound, is to listen to the feedback we get from other people about when we hurt them, or when they tell us enough, like, I've reassured you enough, and enough, like, take in the feedback and don't make everybody else wrong. And do this radical falling in love beforehand, so that when we get triggered, we might not be as triggered. We might still never like it if somebody cuts us off in traffic or says something unkind. We might never like it. But I will say this, the Byron Katie quote, this Byron Katie quote has saved me. It's become a mantra of mine. And it's like this. Ooh. When they attack you and you notice that you're loving them with your whole heart, your work is done. When they attack you and you notice that you're loving them with your whole heart, your work is done. I think that is a high bar. And what this has to do with holding of self is, even if somebody isn't giving me what I want them to give me, worse, they're giving me some negative projection. If I'm holding myself well enough and I'm not needing anything from them in order to be whole, then I might be closer to being able to see them as an aspect of myself that is worthy of love with my whole heart. So I think all of this is going to be written. Your book is nearly written. It's going to be out soon. So people get ready for falling in love with your shadows.
Ooh, can I comment on that?
God, please.
Okay, because this made me think of my friend who I recently let go. And all the reassurance I was trying to provide her after I felt very hurt by her over and over and over again. And I kept, gently correcting her and saying, I'm not giving you permission to talk about this anymore. This is off limits. This is not safe any longer. I'm please asking you for space. I'm asking you for space. And numerous, like more than 2 handfuls, more than 3 handfuls of reassurances that I needed space and that I loved her but I still needed, and just being as gentle and graceful and kind as I possibly could until she basically broke up with me, and I just let it go. And I feel upset sometimes, but for the most part, I feel like I love her so much, and I don't want any harm for her, and I don't want to add to her trauma and pain. But after that many reassurances, and without being respected in the way that I was asking and letting go, I'm wondering, because while you were talking, I was thinking, oh no, should I still be loving her? Should I still be feeding her more love? But then
from a far ring of Saturn.
Right. But then when you said the Byron Katie quote, like, I am loving her, and I have been loving her, and I still love her. I just was stopping the behavior and stopping the communication until I could gather myself. I really love her. I love her. I love her. She is not her acting out. She is not her dysfunction. She is not her trauma, but her behavior on the planet was too much for me with all that I have going on in my life.
She wasn't holding herself at all.
Holding herself. And so
let me just say this.
Like I was loving her. Yeah.
Even though, okay, here's another thing that we didn't talk about. What she wasn't holding was what she considered wisdom. Like, so even if we have insight for somebody else, that's still something that we need to hold. If they're not receiving it, then it's not for us to say, no, you must have this gift. You must have this, take it. It's like, we have to hold that ourselves, even if somebody doesn't want it. Sorry. Keep going.
No, yeah, that's good. And I, and again, in other episodes, we've talked about how, in some cases, that's her definition of loving sacrifice. Like, I will sacrifice whether you like me or love me or not in order to make sure you hear this. I am calling an intervention on you, and I'm risking you hating me because of it. And again, I see the loving intention in that. I do. And I reached a limit. It took me a long time. It took me many, many communications before I reached that limit. And then still asked for, and still tried to provide some kindness in between the spaces while I was waiting to be able to respond to her. So, I think it was important for her that she got to pull away from me first. And she said she was going to block me, and I didn't respond. I didn't even respond to that. I just let it go. So I'm still loving her. And even though some irritation comes up about it, sometimes I still feel like the main feeling I'm having is love. And so I'm kind of hoping that I've reached the Byron Katie quote, that I've lived up to that Byron Katie quote, that my work is done if I'm still loving them with my whole heart, which I am. So I don't know. I don't know if it's my whole heart.
No.
It might be unfair to say, because there are pieces that I'm, withholding.
I think it's pretty darn friggin' close, because I think there's a coming back to this, like looking at the loving intent, looking at her innocence, and taking radical responsibility. I mean, I think you're doing all the things, and I don't know that which Byron Katie was talking about is a permanent state, like an island that we land on and we never go elsewhere. I think that's just where we keep coming back to. It's the ideal place, and it doesn't mean proximity. I think we can love someone with our entire heart and from afar. That doesn't mean that they get to live humanly in our realm. It just means that we're harboring no big resentments. We're not wishing anything, any malice. So there's no. And I want to say that there's something in, I would say, I'm going to be very bold. And I don't know if I'm right, but I'm going to say this, that in any culture, because we talk about how we have a particular culture of communication that feels ordinary and good and right here, but it might be absolutely at odds with another culture that it's an act of love to break plates and throw things across the room, and that means love. But I want to say that maybe across the board in all cultures, the mature version of love would still include holding yourself. So in this example with this friend, if she had checked in, okay, like, for example, I did an intervention. I was part of an intervention with somebody not that long ago. And I was checking in with myself. how much do I, like, is her behavior, her externalizing, like, how much do I feel like I'm trying to control her? And ultimately, I had to come to this like peaceful place in myself that regardless of what she did, I was okay. But from a holding myself, it felt like an appropriate thing to do to have this event for her, and then for her to take it and do what she felt moved to do with it. It wasn't my job to follow after her and see what she went. I did check in. I've been a part of her support network, but it's not mine to micromanage what she does. I have to give her the dignity of her process. Plant the seeds, drop the hanky, tap on the shoulder, write the message, maybe even hold the intervention in the most loving way possible, and then let the person have the dignity of their process. We're up against the edge, but I want to just say,
Perfect. Yeah.
I want to just say this one thing that's just not been leaving me alone. I mean, this is kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, but my mom used to watch the show Monk. She used to be a big fan of that show. And for anybody who didn't watch it, it's this sort of man who's on the spectrum of, let's say, autism, and not exactly sure, but as personality, let's say behaviorally challenged as he is, he's equally and oppositely brilliant and talented in being able to solve crimes and like see things that most people couldn't see. So it's like that with any of us. If we have a difficulty over here, we have an equal and opposite compensation in some other area. Monk is in a therapy session with his wonderful therapist that he normally spews about all the things that are going on in his life. But in this particular moment, he's really pissed off at his therapist for something that she didn't do or something that she said. And so he's riffing on her to her, and she pauses him and she says, no, this isn't how we do it. You're not allowed you can't talk to me about me in the same way that you talk to me about other people. The rule is you could talk about me to somebody else so that you can get some clarity and then come back to me with your clarity, but you don't get to vent to me about me. I can't hold that space for you.
Oh,
what?
God, that should be a meme everywhere.
What? Exactly.
What? Yeah.
Exactly. So I think we part of our working through our stuff is we have to be very surgical with the person that actually inspired or activated the wound or the trigger. So I think that's part of how we hold ourselves is to find somebody else, find another place, find something else. And I think,
whatever. Yeah.
And when all else fails, do what Christy Whitman did and consider the 90-second rule. I'm calling it a rule.
Right.
And I believe there is data to this. I don't know what that data is, but Christy seems to think so. That if we really let it rip for 90 good, hard seconds in a contained, safe place where no one gets harmed, do no harm. If we set the timer for 90 seconds that we're going to let it rip all the way for 90 seconds. And so that at the end of those 90 seconds, we will not keep spiraling back in, but we will be clean. We will be good. We will be ready to face whatever's going on with more clarity and with maybe more insight, or at least with the bees out of our bonnet. So I hope this has been helpful. Joe, thank you so much for sharing, especially your John of God experience. And even though it's not about John of God, that's the nickname for it. It's really about learning how to fall in love, not just tolerate, but to celebrate, fall in love with those shadows. Stay tuned for our next episode, which is the second I in the friendship formula, which is I am all of it.
All of it.
Woo! It's going to be a doozy. Until we meet again, thanks for being our friend. Thank you for joining us on Anatomy of Friendship.
If this has been helpful to you, or if you have questions or comments,
please share them with us at anatomyoffriendship.com.
if you haven't yet, take a moment to follow, like, and subscribe to our show.
And don't forget to share it with a friend or two or a few.
Special shout out to Dana Walden at Love Hub Productions for being our engineer, producer, and for writing our friendship song.
And Karina Grandma for being the voice of our song. Take it away, Karina.
Thank you